What up, T-Bird? I saw that post, bro. Crazy stuff, dude. Crazy stuff. So yeah, we it took us a minute. It took us a minute to well, it's I guess it's crazy what might come of this. But yeah, it was a long time coming, I completely agree with you. In fact, I'm surprised that there hasn't been more, and a little bit frustrated, to be honest. Things are good. Things are good. I'm trying to get the tech working on this end. It's such a pain in the ass. Yeah, and then there was like this whole problem getting in the studio tonight. It was fuck, what are you gonna do? But we're working it out. We're working it out. I'm gonna play my PSAs in a minute and hop back on. We're gonna talk actually about the strike. So if you have any questions or commentary, I'm also streaming on YouTube right now, which is brand new for me. So don't know how it's going. I should probably link that. You know?
Hey, I'm Jamal. Hi, I'm Sally. Hola, soy Miguel. My grandpa died of lung cancer because he smoked 3 packs a day. My aunt lives in a town where the air can be so bad, she has to stay inside a lot. I have asthma. So does my sister. So does my mother. Clean air, clear lungs. They're important to everyone. And that's what the American Lung Association is all about. The American Lung Association is working on making the air cleaner. They're helping people to quit smoking. And finding cures for asthma and other lung diseases. My family supports the American Lung Association. So does mine. Mine too. They're fighting big tobacco, bad air, and the asthma epidemic. So call 1-800-LUNG-USA. That's 1-800-LUNG-USA. Call 1-800-LUNG-USA and join the fight. Brought to you by the American Lung Association of New York State. Hey, what's up? This is Eric. You're listening.
WUSB Stony Brook, and we are back here on the struggle session. Okay, so I finally think I got the whole program figured out. Okay, it only took me a year, but I finally got everything going. So we are officially live here on WUSB, but we are not just live here on the radio. We are being simulcast or trimulcast. Trimulcast, 3 ways. Okay, so you got us on the radio, and you also got us over on Twitch, on twitch.tv/non_smoker, right? And then you also have us on the Struggle Session Radio YouTube channel. Okay, so if you go to the YouTube and you put in Struggle Session Radio, okay, and then you can see me. Then you see me live in the studio, blabbing on and on and on endlessly. Okay, so we're all over the place, right? We might not have many listeners or viewers, but we just keep opening up different channels where you can listen and view us. Okay, and somehow that works out to be a good thing, I guess. So okay, we opened the show talking about Iran's strikes on Israel today. Again, over about 180 missiles approximately launched from Iran into Israel. No deaths reported as of yet. As far as we know, several casualties, serious injuries. There was also a mass shooting today in Israel, potentially organized by groups affiliated with the Axis of Resistance. So, there's a lot of chaos going on. And, from what I can tell from the most recent updates that I have, there's yet to be any serious responses from Israel. Actually, no, I stand corrected. Various strikes all over the Middle East in response to the strikes on Israel today by Iran. So, number of targets hit in Lebanon just now within the last hour or so. Don't have too much information on that past the fact that there were strikes. So things are popping off in the Middle East. We'll try to keep an eye on that, folks. I'll keep you posted and updated as much as I possibly can, as often as I can. And look, in addition to all of this craziness going on in the world, there's a pretty good amount going on domestically in America as well. The dock worker strike today, which began earlier today. I actually have some audio here I'd like to play you in regards to the dock worker strike, which was, of course, in the news all day today. So let's listen to that. So once again, we're facing a strike here. And, look, you're going to see more and more labor action, I think, from here on out. I actually don't think that you're going to see less labor action, less strikes or threats of strikes. You're going to see a far greater number of strikes than you've ever seen or than you've seen in a long time. And I think that, I said this during the United Auto Workers strike. I said this about the railroad strike before the Biden administration axed that one. Thank you, Joe Biden. But what you're seeing is collective labor reassert its power in this country. And it's a good thing. It's a good thing. And a lot of people, strikes are never popular. Frequent, like often the average person, and there was actually a poll from the Chamber of Commerce, LOL, but, the Chamber of Commerce gave out a poll where they asked something like 1,600 people, what is your opinion on the strike, potential strike of dock workers? And, 50% of respondents, over 50% of respondents are against a strike. Go figure. Why are people against the strike? Well, and why are people freaking out about this now? And why is it a topic of conversation in the news? Why should we care about the dock workers? Well, obviously, if the dock workers stop working, what's a dock worker? Well, those are the people who help take those big ships that you've seen in the news where it has all of the cargo in those big shipping containers. They look like big steel, I don't know, shapes, right? Rectangles, okay? That's full of all that stuff that you order on Amazon, okay? There are people who physically need to take that crap off of those ships and put it onto docks, and then that stuff is then shipped from those docks to warehouses and eventually to you. So if there aren't people in this chain, in the supply chain, all doing their job, well, then that's not possible, is it? Now, there's always going to be some people available to do that kind of stuff. But if there are not enough people available to do it, or, there's some sort of issue somewhere in the supply chain, and it's more difficult to get packages to you, that actually makes the whole process more expensive, right? Because there's a greater demand on things, because there's an artificial restraint in supply. It's standard kind of economics. So strikes are inflationary. And for that matter, any disruption in the aforementioned supply chain is inflationary. So in the same way, when the Houthis, for example, in Yemen, they strike ships that are passing, through the Red Sea into the Strait of Hormuz and so on, when they interrupt the flow of ships from the Indian Ocean into the Mediterranean and eventually to the Atlantic, that also places an artificial constraint on supply. That also is inflationary, makes things more expensive. These big companies that rake in enormous amounts of money, they lose money, right? And the consumers lose as well. So lots of people don't like this. But what I've always asserted, and I think it's very important for not just left wingers, but everybody to understand, is this actually demonstrates the value of labor. Because if you don't have people doing all of this stuff, it's not possible. Now, there's an irony in this with the dock workers strike, because the core problem in the dock workers strike is that many of these companies that have raked in all of these massive profits actually want to automate the whole process. And the dock workers are, of course, against this, right? And the reason that they're against this is because they stand to lose their jobs. So it's very similar to a lot of the strikes or a lot of the outrage that truckers were feeling about, and still are feeling, by the way. But that was at a fever pitch, I would say, 4 or 5 years ago, regarding the automation of the trucking industry. Now, I happen to think a lot of the talk about automation is, in general, a little overrated. I don't think we're at the point technologically where we can just automate all of this stuff with no human oversight at all. But you're going to see less and less human oversight needed the better the technology gets. So these people are striking to protect their jobs. And for right now, their jobs are necessary. But in the future, they might not be. And there's really no plan for what to do with those people once technology marginalizes them. And so there's really, one of the greatest, I would say, political tragedies of my lifetime was the rise and fall of Andrew Yang. Does anyone remember Andrew Yang? Andrew Yang ran for president in the 2019-2020 election season. He wanted to be the Democratic nominee. He was a very fringe candidate. He received almost, he didn't win any primaries. He polled very low. He was also given almost no coverage by the media. And then he later wanted to become, I believe it was mayor of New York City. But he actually outed himself as a hardcore supporter of Israel, which basically tanked his whole career. Like he lost whatever support he had gathered in 2019, 2020. But the point is, Andrew Yang basically built a political career on the idea that he had a plan to institute universal basic income. And he called it the freedom dividend. And basically what it would be was a payment for every American. I think was it like $1,000 or $2,000 a month. Wasn't probably the best plan in general, but what was important about Andrew Yang was his rationale for this UBI. And Andrew Yang's rationale was that many Americans were facing mass, unemployment due to the fact that automation would make their work and their labor totally useless. And so they would be out of a job and unable to care for themselves. And we had to have some plan to take care of those people. And the fascinating thing about Andrew Yang, and the reason that his campaign, I felt at the time, was so important, was because Andrew Yang was really the only person in the mainstream American political discourse who was even talking about this problem. There were no other candidates on the Democratic ticket, on the Republican ticket, or really, any candidates who were involved in the national conversation in any way, even discussing the problem whatsoever. Andrew Yang was the only one who had that forward vision of like, hey, this is going to be a problem, not just, within my administration if I hypothetically became president, but it's going to be a problem 10, 20, 50, 100 years into the future. And if we don't prepare for it now, there's going to be chaos in the near distant future, in the near to distant future. And we're seeing the early stages of that now. And I guess what I'm implying in saying all of this is that we ain't seen nothing yet. Automation is coming for lots of jobs. And what are we going to do about that? It's not a matter of going Ted Kaczynski and saying we shouldn't automate. It's not a matter of replicating what the Luddites did in England and destroying the machines, right? You can't resist progress. Progress is inevitable. AI, automation, these things are going to be part of our future, whether we want them to be or not. The same way smartphones are part of our present reality and they're here to stay. The same way that the internet is here to stay, barring some sort of ecological catastrophe which wipes out the power grid. Which, if you've been watching any of the coverage of this hurricane, it's not out of the realm of possibility, by the way. But nevertheless, barring some sort of catastrophe where there's no electricity, technology is here to stay and it will continue to progress and things will be more and more automated. And we're going to have to deal with that reality. So when I try to talk to people about communism in the 21st century and people giggle and sneer at me and they say it's not a serious political program, I say in response to them, well, okay, what is your political platform's solution for the job losses and the disenfranchisement that will be caused by automation, which is inevitable? And what's kind of crazy about this is that the people who are pushing automation and the people who are pushing AI the hardest, the developers of this technology, are the people in Silicon Valley. And the people in Silicon Valley are heavily invested in the present political order, being maintained with them as an integral part of the ruling class. You see it on both sides. Silicon Valley is in bed with the Democrats. You see that with companies like Meta and Google. And actually, Meta is sort of swinging in the other direction now. Mark Zuckerberg endorsed Trump. But you see Elon Musk and Peter Thiel, firmly aligned with the right wing and the Republican Party. I mean, if you know anything about anything, JD Vance, Trump's vice presidential pick, was basically created in a lab by David Sachs, Peter Thiel, Tucker Carlson, and Elon Musk. And all of those people lobbied Donald Trump to select JD Vance. Actually, an interesting side note, by the way, for those of you who are somewhat interested in Mr. Vance's seemingly out of nowhere rise to power. Ken Klippenstein, who's a journalist, he posted the infamous Vance dossier, which is a fairly long document regarding the Trump team's research on JD Vance, all of his strengths and weaknesses. And when Ken Klippenstein posted that on X, vis-a-vis his Substack, so he posted this on X, which is of course owned by Elon Musk. He had his account deactivated. So the freedom of speech, era of Elon Musk is, Elon Musk has taken X/Twitter and basically just turned it into like a bastion for right-wing speech, and I don't have a problem with the right wing having a platform the same way the left wing has a platform. I don't care if everybody has a platform. But the idea that they tout themselves as free speech is so laughable. Because given the first opportunity, they censor any dissenting views, just like the previous administration at Twitter did regarding right-wing views and other, things that were outside of the Overton window of acceptable discourse. But I mean, it just frustrates me because you heard Elon Musk and people like that talking about snowflakes and sensitivity and all this stuff, and then they censor people like Ken Klippenstein, who, want to basically just reveal what the Trump campaign thought of JD Vance before they picked him. But anyways, the point, just getting back to the original topic, this dock workers strike is the first in what I think will be many strikes, not just related to AI and automation, right? But many strikes in general because labor is reasserting itself as a real legitimate force in this country. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing to have a collective sense of consciousness among working people, right? So the International Longshoremen's Association, they're the ones who are initiating this strike. They represent 45,000 port workers, and they've been negotiating with the United States Maritime Alliance, USMX, which is an employer group, for a new 6-year contract ahead of a midnight Monday deadline, which they did not reach. So the Longshoremen's Association, the ILA, they're seeking a 77% wage increase over 6 years, which some of that is to match inflation and anticipated inflation. A complete ban on automated equipment like cranes, gates, and container moving trucks. They claim it's not just to protect their jobs, but it's for safety concerns, which there's a degree of validity to that. Safety concerns. We're not at a point, as I said before, we're not at a point technologically where all of this stuff can run itself. I still have to slap ChatGPT around to get it to do what I want it to do. I mean, it took me 45 minutes to log into Twitch tonight. I don't think and some of that is me being a 35-year-old boomer, yes, but some of that is just the fact that technology is not as advanced as people purport it to be, although it's approaching that point, but we're not there yet. So they're looking for improved health coverage and job security in the face of increasing automation. Now, estimates suggest a 1-week strike could cost the United States economy nearly $4 billion. A 1 week strike, $4 billion. Damn. JP Morgan analysts project potential economic losses of $5 billion a day, equivalent to about 6% of our GDP. Wow. The strike could cause supply chain disruptions and delays through mid-November or longer, aka Christmas. Santa's not coming to town, or he's going to be a little delayed, or it's going to be a little expensive for him to provide his usual services this year. And what is the and just some affected goods through all of this. Bananas and other fresh produce, manufacturing components, which of course manufacturing components are used to make other things. So the things that manufacturing components are used to make, right? What they are the components, the final product that they are the components of, that final product will also become more expensive, right? Plywood and raw materials, cotton, copper, fresh meat and refrigerated foods, clothing, footwear, and accessories, and then vehicles. So everything's going to potentially get more expensive if this strike is, has any real length to it. So what does Biden have to say? What's Biden's response in all of this? It's very interesting, actually. Biden was asked about this rather, I would say, abruptly. And Biden says unequivocally he will not intervene in a strike. The president does not believe in Taft-Hartley. He will not intervene in a strike. Now, don't lie to me, okay? There's a couple of you out there who are like, what is Taft-Hartley? And then there's a few of you who are like, I know what Taft-Hartley is, but you really don't. And then there's an even smaller number of you that really do know what Taft-Hartley is. And you're like, oh, it's a good comment by our president. He's really pro-labor. What is Taft-Hartley? Taft-Hartley was an act passed in 1947, relatively old, which weakened labor unions significantly. Taft-Hartley allows the government to step in if a strike could threaten public health or national safety. And basically, with Taft-Hartley, the federal government could make the argument that the dock worker strike is threatening the country in some significant way. And they could probably make the argument that, well, it's making it too difficult for medical supplies to reach people. And that could have a catastrophic impact on human life. And so we're going to end the strike now by force, right? Federal government, through Taft-Hartley, has the authority to do that. And Biden is saying, I don't believe in Taft-Hartley. By the way, has anyone else noticed that Biden has become very grouchy and cantankerous in the last several months, ever since he's been forced to step down? Go figure. But I got to say, I've been a massive critic of the Biden administration, and I kind of like grumpy Biden. Like it was like a week or two ago, he was introducing Modi, the Prime Minister of India, and he forgot who he was introducing. During the speech where he was supposed to introduce Modi, he forgot who he was introducing. Poor guy. And he turned to like his staff and said, and we're here to introduce, who am I introducing? He's like, I like grumpy Biden. I don't know. It's just, I find it to be charming. I don't know why. You would think it would be anything but I kind of like it. Anyway, regardless, Biden doesn't support Taft-Hartley, supposedly. Well, why didn't Biden say things like that in 2022 when it came to the railroad strike, which was not the exact same scenario, but similar? If you remember, the railroad strike also threatened to really slow down the economy significantly and create a tremendous amount of inflationary pressure at a time when inflationary pressure was rising significantly because of the Ukraine war, because of the end of COVID and the economy opening back up and interest rates being so low for so long and the velocity of money, all these different factors pushing prices way up there. And the Biden administration knew that they couldn't afford a railroad strike. So, of course, they hatcheted it as soon as they had the opportunity to. A bill passed through Congress, which did not give the striking railroad workers what they wanted, which was really just like more sick time. And Biden signed it into law, and that ended the strike. But now he doesn't support Taft-Hartley. Now he's a big labor guy. And the answer to this question, why did Biden not support the railroad strike in 22, and why does he support the dock worker strike now in 24? It just comes down to the fact that there's an election coming. There's an election coming, and because of the election, hey, you have to stand with working people, because you can't. The most important demographic in the upcoming election, I would argue there's two, but probably the most crucial one is the white working class. Because the white working class cost Hillary Clinton the election in 2016. They won Joe Biden the election in 2020. And they're going to probably decide this election. The only other demographic I would say that has anywhere near that level of importance is actually, young voters in a general sense, because those are the people who are outraged and angry about the genocide in Gaza, and they might refuse to vote for Kamala Harris and either abstain from voting entirely or vote third party, which could, of course, result in a win for the Republicans. So Biden is going to do whatever he can to win back or win over the white working class. And so that means supporting these strikes, right? Even though he didn't support the railroad strike, he claims to be a big labor guy, but, will shut down the railroad strike, or when, there's like a chemical spill in East Palestine, Joe Biden will make no serious significant efforts to address the problem, sweep the whole thing under the rug, doesn't care about those working class communities in that sense. But when it's politically expedient to do so, now he doesn't support Taft-Hartley. He loves collective bargaining and blah, blah, blah. So we'll see. We'll see. Parties take advantage of this stuff. They have to try. And, it's curious, like, what's the Trump administration's response to this? I don't know. I mean, Trump has had a shaky record with labor people, despite white working class people liking Trump. And okay, look, if we're just thinking Democratic strategy, you should really wonder, why is it that white working class voters like Trump, despite the fact that the party that supposedly supports all of their unions and stuff like that is firmly in line with the Democrats and what the Democrats want to do. How could it be that the people who should be constituents of the Democratic Party support the Republican Party? And what it comes down to is immigration. The Democrats have no answer for immigration whatsoever. It's a losing issue for them. So, Kamala Harris spoke to that recently, and is pretending to be really tough on illegal immigration. And if you're not here legally, we won't let you in the country. And it's like, okay, well, there's tens of thousands of migrants coming into the country and nothing being done about it. And I know that it's an uncomfortable reality that a lot of people don't want to talk about. And there's definitely overtones of racism with Trump when he talks about this stuff. And that's very uncomfortable language, but it doesn't change the fact that something has to be done about the immigration problem in this country. Over 80% of Americans view it as a serious problem. So the Democrats, I mean, whatever. I guess I'm giving some advice here. Maybe address that problem. And in addition to paying lip service to the unions, and how about actually sticking by the unions? If they just played their cards, if they just actually supported the people, they would win every election. Because people are more progressive now in many ways than they ever have been. It's really not the culture war stuff that loses the Democrats' elections. It's not abortion rights. Most Americans support access to some abortion, But what loses the Democrats' elections is the fact that they don't represent the interests of the people. And by the way, neither do the Republicans, neither does Trump, but it is a better job at pretending. So with that being said, we will continue to our next music segment, and I'm in a mood. I'm in a mood of moods. I like this one. Okay, it's a Donetsk Russian patriotic song, "Arise Donbass." Here on the struggle session, and we will be back shortly to continue our various discussions. We're going to move on, talk about the VP debate and the impact of the hurricane. But for now, how about some music from Lucia here on USB Stony Brook. California Fools. All right, guys. For those of you on Twitch, thank you for coming. We're also on YouTube. YouTube getting no love over here, but we are on YouTube. So I'm not just double live, I am triple live. I'm on the radio, I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitch, I'm all over the place, bro. All over the place. But we're here, and we're on the air for about another 40 minutes. What's your YouTube channel? I like harassing people there too. Hold on, let me post it. Let me just post it. It's on my Discord. I don't know if you're on there. You should hop on there. Yeah, I'm up there on YouTube. I got to get an iPad holder because this fucking thing is like very. I got it propped up on my wallet right now, so I don't know how the picture's coming in. I hope the audio's coming in okay. Post this in Nikki's Discord. Well, it's in the song. You mean? Okay, thank you for the follow. If you want the song, I can put it on there. Everybody's shouting me directions right now. It's a little bit frustrating. I got you on both apps. Yeah, thanks, bro. At least someone's watching on YouTube. I'm just playing all the old hits right now. You guys gotta appreciate the fact that I'm playing North Korean music over FCC regulated airplanes. You gotta love it. Most better than most rap and pop music. I agree with that conspiracy nut. All right, guys. Is anyone watching the VP debate? I am not watching. I was going to talk a little bit about it. See, the problem is I don't think I can play. I don't think I can play the debate on the air. Dude, JD Vance has no fucking soul. I don't mean like a black man. I mean like no soul, like in Christian sense. There's nothing in there, bro. I gotta play my PSAs. We're gonna play "Don't Cross the Street." That's a good PSA.
Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle of the block. Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle of the block. Teach your eyes to look up, teach your ears to hear. Walk up to the corner where the coast is clear, and wait until you see the light turn green. Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle of the block. Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle of the block. Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle of the block. Teach your eyes to look up, teach your ears to hear. Walk up to the corner where the coast is clear, and wait until you see the light turn green. Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle, in the middle of the block. Don't cross the street in the middle, in the middle, in the middle.
Vance did fuck the couch. Yeah, I'm never crossing it either, dude. How bad is this? Dude, listen to this one, guys. This one's bad.
Nurse, I need you to apply pressure to the head wound until I can get to it. I'm concerned she's lost too much blood.
Oh, no.
You in the corner, who are you? You're not supposed to be here.
She's my girlfriend, doctor.
You need to wait out in the waiting room.
Please, doctor, I want to stay with her.
Look, she's been badly injured. So if you want to do what's best for her, you need to let us do our work.
Please, doctor, she has to be okay. I didn't mean to do this. I love her.
Wait a second. You were the driver?
Yes, but I didn't mean to. I swear, we went to dinner. I was just buzzed. I only had a few drinks.
Just buzzed. Why didn't you tell us that? In that case, your girlfriend is fine.
Hey, sweetie, I feel great. You want to get out of here?
I can't believe this. Really, doctor? She's really okay?
What, are you kidding? No, not really. Nurse, get me a suture kit.
How messed up is that ad?
Buzzed driving. Maybe we should stop acting like it's no big deal. Buzz driving is drunk driving.
Jeez.
A public service announcement brought to you by the U.S. Department of Transportation, the Ad Council, and this station.
Hi, this is Jeff Barnett, the Associate Dean of Students here at Stony Brook University. I'm a proud Seawolf, and you're listening to WUSB Stony Brook, 90.1 FM.
WUSB Stony Brook, and we are back here on the struggle session. Happy to be with you once again. We've had quite a show this evening. We were a few minutes late. I was locked out. There was chaos. There was pandemonium. Campus police had to bust down the door, and they made this entire program possible. So big thank you to campus police here tonight. No, I am not exaggerating. Yes, that is exactly what happened. Yes, I'm being serious. No, I'm not being deadpan, even though I probably sound a little bit like I am. But whatever the case, however we got here, the point is that we're here, and I'm happy to be here. We've had a fun show tonight. Pretty serious, heavy topics. We were talking about the strikes on Israel that were carried out by Iran earlier today. For us earlier today. About 180 missiles striking Israel from Iran. Hypersonic missiles, which are, of course, able to puncture the Iron Dome of Israel. Israel has carried out over 10 airstrikes in Beirut in the last 2 hours. There's a bunch of images on Telegram and other social media of burning, smoldering buildings. But no, as far as I could tell anyway, from this point, no assessment of the damages. So something to keep an eye on. We will definitely be back here in 2 weeks to break all of this down for you once again. But I do want to encourage the listeners out there in WUSB that, to follow this show on both YouTube and Twitch. So you can find me on YouTube at Struggle Session Radio. Just go to YouTube and type in Struggle Session Radio. And you can find me on Twitch, twitch.tv/non_smoker. You can find me on Twitch or YouTube, where we will be broadcasting again Thursday night, discussing all of these topics and more, engaging in debates, so on and so forth. So continuing, we had last left off talking about the dock workers strike. And I kind of want to shift gears a little bit and talk a bit about Hurricane Helena's impact in the South, right? And look, I mean, this has been really bad. And if you've been on social media, you've seen, the devastation and the chaos, all over the South. The storm's path of destruction spans 500 miles. It's a huge, huge swath of a U.S. territory. So it spans from Florida to the Blue Ridge Mountains. And there's been at least 97 dead confirmed as a result of this storm across 6 states. Hundreds of people are still unaccounted for, potentially stranded or unable to communicate due to damaged infrastructure. Entire business districts in some areas have been wiped out. It's horrible. I mean, if you just look at some of the footage on social media, some of the images online, horrible stuff. And let's be honest, it brings to mind a lot of the issues that really extreme weather should always bring to the forefront of your mind: climate change and the impact that climate change has on weather. There's strong body of evidence which shows a direct link between the two. The more that we alter the climate through the use of fossil fuels, the more extreme weather we seem to get. Over on Twitch, we do have a user here, Conspiracy Nut 420. They commented, "Oh, I got a buddy out in South Carolina right now. Power is out for 4 days, and the stores are completely empty of food and supplies." There's lots of stories like that. And it's really horrific stuff. But something I wanted to touch on, which has been, I feel like should be a much bigger story than what it is what happened over at Impact Plastics. Okay, and Impact Plastics is a company that their business is really all over the country. But their facility, one of their facilities, is located in Tennessee. And the facility in Tennessee was the site of a really horrible tragedy. So they had several people working over at Impact Plastics factory in Tennessee. And as the floodwaters rose, some employees were unable to leave the premises safely. So what did they do? Well, a group of the workers attempted to escape in a semi-truck, which was loaded with spools of flexible yellow plastic pipes. These employees clung to the truck for hours as floodwaters raged around them. However, the truck eventually tipped over, sweeping at least 7 people away in the floodwaters. At least 2 deaths have been confirmed. One woman from the group on the truck, another unidentified individual mentioned in the company's statement. Several employees are still missing, with their fate unknown. Some employees, like Jacob Ingram, who was an employee at Impact Plastics who was working at the time of this incident, claim that managers initially would not allow workers to leave despite the weather. Ingram stated that by the time evacuation was deemed necessary, it was too late for those without 4-wheel drive vehicles. And so this is really, heartbreaking, horrible stuff. And, it's one thing for me to read it to you. It's another for me to play for you the comments of Jacob Ingram himself. I'd like you to listen in. I mean, really, like, really horrible, horrible stuff. And what frustrates me, okay, what frustrates me as a person who, I worked as a custodian for 8 years, and I worked for a really large company on Long Island, actually Long Island's biggest employer, and I worked in a hospital. So you could probably figure out what company that is. And I remember when I worked for this company on Long Island, there was a policy during extreme weather events, hurricanes, snow, whatever. You absolutely 100% were not allowed to call out of work unless there was some extreme extenuating circumstances because they needed you on hand to make sure that the hospital was running. And it made sense, right? Because you need a hospital to operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So, yes, you need everybody on hand, even custodians, right? A hospital can't run without custodial staff. A hospital can't run without various people, right? Well, so in that sense, even when I worked at the hospital, it felt a little extreme. I mean, people during snowstorms would have to stay overnight because they didn't want to miss work the next morning. It was like it involved a significant amount of personal sacrifice to stay employed for this company. Well, Impact Plastics is a plastic company. Okay, they're a plastic company. Do some of the services they provide or some of the roles that their products fill, are they really important? I'm sure they are. But is it life or death? Is it life or death, really, that they stay open through that storm? I can't imagine that it is. I can't imagine that it is. So it's obviously negligence, extreme negligence, to tell your employees that they have to work through such an extreme weather event. But I actually think this opens up a bigger conversation here, and I can bring it all back to communism. And I know, there's like a roll of the eyes, okay, from the members of the audience who have different politics than I do. But let me explain myself. The reason that Impact Plastics stays open is not because the owners of the company and the owners of that particular facility are mean or that they hate people or whatever. The reason that that facility stays open is because it's profitable to do so, and that it would cut into the company's profits to close the facility. It's just that simple. And so the profit motive goes above the value of human life for the capitalist. And again, it's not that people need to understand Marxism as a philosophical system in this sense, because there's so much moralizing with politics. There's so much moralizing with all of this stuff. Let's remove the moralization from it completely. It's not because the factory owner is a bad person. It's because they are literally possessed. They're possessed by capital. They're possessed by the need to reproduce capital and enhance capital with, surplus profits. Right? And so this need to constantly expand and grow and make money, right? And it's not just for the sake of avarice. It's just because that's how capitalism functions. You have to continue generating a profit and then to reinvest that profit into your business so that it will continue to grow. And so that comes before all else, including the risk of human life. And what's weird is okay, are there capitalists, are there people in this economic system that have common sense and they would say, no, of course you close the factory during a catastrophic weather event? Yes. People are able to overcome that possession of being possessed by capital, but you actually hear really bizarre rationalizations for this kind of stuff from capitalists, and it comes in the form of this very toxic work culture we have in America, where it's no, 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 you have to grind, you have to work, you have to do your best, you have to work your hardest, you have to sacrifice time with your family, you have to blah, 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 all to make it, all to make money, all to become rich and successful and powerful, and most importantly, to avoid being a loser, right? And you hear that's some of the messaging that you hear on social media that's fed to kids in the form of like motivational content and you know, manosphere stuff and life advice kind of things from people like, Jocko Willink and Joe Rogan and David Goggins and people like that, where it's like, no, 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 you have to man up and you have to work really hard and you have to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and eat a single almond and then go to work for 14 hours a day. And, this very toxic mentality of like, don't be a loser. And if you're not working as hard as you possibly can at all times, you're a loser. And what it amounts to is a defense of this system. And what this system is basically the reproduction of capital at all costs. The reproduction and expansion of capital at all costs, including human life. And you see that play out in reality sometimes, and it's disturbing. But what I'm suggesting to you is that it's inherent to the system. And you don't see it as much in America because America is a first world country where, quite frankly, not a lot, or I shouldn't say not a lot, but most of the world's labor doesn't take place here. Where does most of the world's labor take place? Well, it takes place in the third world. It takes place in Africa, it takes place in Asia, it takes place in Latin America. And in all of those places, safety standards are extremely low. People die producing stuff all the time. And it's like, well, their lives just basically don't matter. And why do they not matter? It's not because we're evil. It's not because, the people who own these companies are evil, like the Foxconn suicide nets are not there because, the people who own that company are evil. That stuff is there because the expansion and reproduction of capital come above human life. It's more important. And what we're suggesting as communists, what we're suggesting as leftists is just that, we don't have to base production on that. We can base production on meeting people's needs. And, we were just talking in our last segment about automation and AI and all of this stuff. It's possible in the near future, it will be possible to actually quantify people's needs through AI and allocate resources exactly as they're needed. So there doesn't need to be a profit motive to drive production. A comment on Twitch says, coming in from Conspiracy Nut 420, would you rather profit or still have your soul? That's the end of it. Work till you're dead. The entire system's broken, man, and it's about to collapse. And I agree with that comment. I completely agree with that comment. One way to think about communism as a political philosophy that actually is quite rational and makes a lot of sense and is not idealistic and is not utopian, but it's very matter of fact, is that we're living through the death of capitalism. And what we mean by that is you're starting to see the cracks in the veneer appear in such a way that they can't just be patched up all over again. You're seeing crises, arise as a direct result of this economic system. One of them is climate change. Another is abuse of workers in the third world, right? And these crises that result from capitalism's inherent antagonisms cannot be addressed through reform. They cannot be addressed through, people being nicer and moralizing. They're inherent to the system. And so what will happen is some sort of systemic collapse will occur and will pave the way for a new economic system, which, if you are a materialist like I am, you understand that that is the foundation of a new political system. Another comment from Twitch, from Conspiracy Nut 420. But the problem with communism is that it gives too much power to the government and holds politicians to a higher degree than they're able to hold. What I mean by this is you're betting on a politician to actually do their job or have some kind of merit. And that's a common critique. But I would argue that all political systems give too much power to the government because you need central control and you need to centralize power to establish an economic order and to control production. If anybody's ever read a book by, it's actually an article by Friedrich Engels called On Authority, his whole central argument is this: people who hate the idea of authority need to understand that authority exists anywhere that there is any kind of production or any kind of order whatsoever. And he uses the example of like factories. He also uses the example of labor unions. He also uses the example of like democracy. In all these cases, people have to surrender their individual will to some kind of authority. It's either collective authority or authority in terms of the demands of production. So there's authority one way or the other. There's authority under capitalism. We have a government with central control. And a lot of libertarians get this wrong. They say, well, the solution is to just curtail the power of the government, and give more power back to businesses and more power back to individuals. And that will result in harmony and freedom for everybody and, blah, blah, blah. And we can all have ice cream for dinner if we want to. And mom can't tell us when to go to bed anymore. That's the libertarian philosophy, right? Is candy for breakfast. Okay, well, be that as appealing as that might be, the reality is if you dismantle the power structure completely, anarchists want to do that too, by the way. What will happen is someone will rise up and establish a new power structure to protect their own interests against everybody else who selfishly will want to infringe upon their interests, because individual interests tend to overlap. If you don't believe me, look in a kindergarten classroom, right? That's my block. No, it's mine, right? Well, adults are not that far off from that, okay? Go on a subway and see how people fight over the last available seat. So individual interests will overlap. So in a scenario where you totally flatten the power structure, but not everybody's needs are met, because they can't be unless you establish some system to make sure everybody's needs are met, people will fight. And where people will fight, someone will establish boundaries to protect their own property and their own rights. And people will come under their umbrella for protection. And you will eventually have a government. If you tear down everything we have, you'll probably build up something that resembles pretty much the same system we have now. Because the underlying structure of government is the economic order. And the economic order we have now is free market capitalism. And so we live in a liberal democracy because that's the political system that matches free market capitalism. What I'm suggesting is when the underlying economic conditions change, the political system will change. But what's a weird irony of that is you need to initiate economic change through politics. And so how do you do that? Well, you need to do that by centralizing power. Well, who's going to centralize power and change the economic system? Communists, right? Does it make sense now? I'm explaining it all in the best, clearest terms I possibly can. And by the way, I know there's many in the audience on Twitch, on YouTube, and on the radio here on WUSB Stony Brook who hate what I'm saying, couldn't disagree with me more. And I encourage debate. Okay, we're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/non_smoker. We're live on YouTube, Struggle Session Radio. We're live on the air, WUSB Stony Brook. I can't take calls live on the air because I don't know what you're going to say, and these are FCC regulated airwaves. But please contact me on one of these platforms. Set something up. I would love to have a debate. It's kind of my thing. But I just want to remind everyone that like this whole incident, this terrible incident at Impact Plastics is not new. Okay, the same thing happened with Amazon. The Amazon warehouse incident of 2021. So in December 2021, a tornado struck an Amazon warehouse in Edwardsville, Illinois, which killed 6 people. And a number of key issues were highlighted as a result of this Amazon case. So there was a lack of emergency training. Workers claimed they had never received tornado drills or proper emergency training. There was inadequate shelter. Employees were instructed to take shelter in a designated safe zone, an interior bathroom, not designed for extreme weather, with only 11 minutes notice. There was no dedicated storm shelter. The warehouse was built without reinforced dedicated storm shelter areas, despite being a tornado-prone region. And there was this emphasis on the prioritization of productivity. Some workers reported being expected to continue working during active tornado warnings in the past. The key similarity here is this: delayed evacuation. Both this warehouse incident from Amazon in Edwardsville, Illinois, and the Impact Plastics incident in Tennessee, in both cases, there was a delayed evacuation. Both incidents involved workers remaining on site as conditions outside worsened. And both companies did so because of the profit motive. So, how do we answer for this stuff? You know, the thing that bothers me, if I just want to go back to moralizing, the thing that bothers me is no one is ever held accountable for this. No one. And people say, like, oh, if you don't like it, don't buy on Amazon. You know, I canceled Amazon Prime because of that whole incident. Like, I make a difference. Millions of people use Amazon Prime. They buy their crap on Amazon all the time. It makes no difference. Why do people do that? Is because people are bad or whatever? No, they do that because Amazon has, like, effectively a monopoly on shipping goods in this country. You know, and it's just cheaper to buy from them. And you're a working family and you need groceries, you need to order things, you're going to buy from Amazon. So it just continues. Comment from T-Bird the Third over here on Twitch. I never ordered from Amazon. I'd say you're in the minority there, my friend, but good for you. Comment on Twitch, Conspiracy Nut 420. Well, when you're dealing with mega corporations, at some point, all human lives become devalued. They will really wait if it's cheaper to replace the worker or ensure the worker's safety. Most time it's cheaper, so they just keep making them work. I agree. Completely agree. But there's never anyone held accountable for this stuff, and it's quite bothersome. And I would also say that's, once again, a problem inherent to the system. So I'm going to wrap the show up. We go off the air in about 10 minutes. But I do want to encourage everybody to tune in 2 weeks. We will be back at 8 o'clock, our usual time, and we will simulcast on both YouTube and Twitch. We're back on Twitch on Thursday and YouTube, so check it out. But before we sign off tonight, I do want to talk about the JD Vance Tim Walz debate, which I haven't watched much of. It's going on right now. But there's some key issues you should listen in on. If you haven't listened to the debate already, or you've only heard part of it, you want to listen back for the highlights. Key issues. The number one key issue in this debate, I anticipate, will be abortion and reproductive rights, because it's the most contentious issue, it's the most hot and button issue, and it's the biggest issue for people who don't want to vote for Republicans. I expect JD Vance to make a number of significant errors regarding this, you know, say a lot of foolhardy things politically. So I anticipate that to be an issue, right? And I also think healthcare affordability and policy will be a topic of conversation in this debate. I would expect Vance to be asked to explain Republican plans to replace the Affordable Care Act. Tim Walz could face questions about healthcare affordability initiatives, right? The Democrats love to talk about how they reduce drug prices, which is great, but I don't know if it's doing enough. I know it's not doing enough. Immigration will be a topic of this debate, right? Vance, which this is a winning topic for Republicans. It really is. Democrats don't have an answer for it. Just like abortion is a winning topic for Democrats, immigration is a winning topic for Republicans. Vance's controversial comments, though, about Haitian immigrants might come up. He might have to walk that back. Or he could double down double down on the stuff Trump has said. There is a line of thinking among the Trump campaign that, hey, maybe we can go back to the Trump of old and just say outrageous, controversial things with the hope that we capture the attention of the media and keep the conversation on the issue of immigration, which is a winning issue for us. So it'll be interesting to see that. One thing that I'm curious about is this notion of like masculinity, which will come up in this debate. Tim Walz is sort of branded as like a left-wing kind of populist. He looks at himself as like, a man's man among Democrats. And I'm kind of interested to see how he presents that whole veneer when he's up against J.D. Vance, who, as the Republican, is usually associated with the more masculine traits of like the American voter. But J.D. Vance is anything but a man's man, I would say. He's like a Silicon Valley, young, hip, sort of bro type of guy with a weird beard. So yeah, that's gonna be interesting. They have contrasting visions of what it takes to be a man, and it's unfortunate that will be such an important, crucial topic, but that's where our political discourse is. So with that, I'm going to cut out for the evening. I appreciate everybody for being here on Twitch, YouTube, on WUSB in Stony Brook. And once again, we will be back Tuesday on Twitch. So please check us out. And with all of that being said, I will play us out with a little bit of that good old tune. This is Hell March from the video game Command and Conquer. And we'll follow that with some Rammstein here on the Struggle Session, WUSB Stony Brook, and we'll see. Good evening. I like this as my official sign out music, guys. Hey. All right, guys, take care. All right. How you doing?